In this video, I'm doing a review of the Thinker's Notebook. Disclaimer, I did receive a copy of this notebook for free in exchange for this review, but as always, I'm going to say what I think regardless of whether I paid for the notebook or not. So this one's going to be a little different to most of my review videos. At the start, I'm going to show you the notebook, and then I'm going to show you at the end the weekly spread that I've done in this notebook that I'm going to use for this week, so you can kind of see one way that you could use it. So as I've been talking, you've probably noticed something about the binding on this one. It's disc binding, so I love disc binding. I've got just about every disc bound notebook of honey you can get. I just love it. So much more flexible to be able to add and remove and rearrange pages all the time. So I definitely did want a copy of this one to review. The discs are solid aluminium. They don't have the little like punch out thing in the middle like Happy Planner does. So I feel like ones when they don't, like this, are much more sturdy. I will have all the dimensions for the notebook and the thickness of it. It's quite thin. And the discs as well, all linked in the blog post below. I'll do inches and centimeters. Looking at it now, I'd say it's about maybe 1.5 centimeter diameter discs and about maybe 0.7 centimeter thick. So it is quite a thin notebook. And to be honest, I was expecting some more pages. I think there's about 100, so 50 double-sided pages. It does feel a little light on. It's very lightweight because it's only got this poly cover. So you might have seen this in a few other disc-bound notebooks as well, like the Arc notebook. It's like this bendy, flexible material. The Tool TUL disc-bound notebook has it as well. So some people either really like it or hate it. I actually really like it because it does hold up really well. They always put rounded corners on it, and it's really sturdy. So I like the cover. It just has a black background with this like brown dot and their logo on it. There aren't any other color cover options to choose from at the moment, but maybe that's something they'll add in the future. The other thing you might have noticed is that it is a landscape page orientation notebook. Now, after having used the notebook, I did like the landscape page orientation, but I think an option of portrait ways, like a more traditional notebook, would be really good addition as well. The page size, I should measure it this way because this is the way you would be using it. It is about 9 inches wide by about 6.5 inches high. So I would say it's bigger than A5, but it's not like really big. It's probably about half US letter, around about that. I'll have all the dimensions and everything down below if you can't remember what I've said while I've been talking. So the other thing about this notebook that's a little bit different to most of them is that it has an app that goes with it. So because I'm filming this on my phone, I can't show you the app and how it works, but I can explain it, and I've done screenshots when I did do it, and I'll have that in the blog post, which will be linked down below as well. So you download the app from the app shop. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. And what it does is, if we go to the pages, so you can see there's dot grid and there's also line pages. So what the app does, it's you do your writing, put all your sketches or whatever you want to put on the page, and then it will pick up this little code thing here. So you hover your phone over it like this, it'll scan it, and then this thing, and then what it does, it will just crop so you only see what's on the page. So you have a whole lot of junk on your desk around it, like pens and crap all around the edges of the notebook. It's not going to pick that up, it's just going to crop the page. Now, that's really the only difference to me. Like, I mean, if I take a photo of this right now, you are going to see my background, but if you use the app to do the screenshot, it'll cut all that crap out. So I feel like that would be useful if you were in a corporate setting. Let's say if you were sketching some design ideas, maybe you're like an interior designer and you want to give a copy to your client, then it's a bit more professional to have a scan rather than have all this background stuff in your photo. But apart from that, I mean, just for your average person, maybe if you're a bit OCD about your school notes or something. But I think for most people, just being able to take a photo on their phone would be enough, and you wouldn't really need an app to be able to do that. So I don't know, to each their own. So let's go into the pages. Bright white, as you can see, absolutely love the bright white. Down the bottom here, they have this title box, date, and then these ones integrate with the app. So when you take the photo and you put it in the app, you do a slash with pen first, and then you can sort them that way. I mean, that's a cool option, but I can just take a photo on my phone and sort it into an album anyway. So again, it's the app's cool to have, but do you really need it? Probably not. You could just use this notebook without the app at all. Dot grid spacing, it is a bit bigger than 5 mil. I think it was about 6 or 7. I will include that in the blog post, which will be linked down below. And then on the other side is the lined paper. Same deal with the title box and then the code thing down the bottom. And the line spacing for this one, I think from memory, was about 7 mil. So one of the things that I don't really like about the notebook is that when you look at it, you have to look at it like this on one side, and then if you look at the whole thing in frame, the dot grid's like going the other way. So if you want to look at everything like front on, you're going to have to sort of write upside down. So I think what their intention is that you would use it like this and then you would flip it over. But I know for me, and I'll show you with my weekly spread, I want to see it like all at once. So I think if they tweaked it a bit, so they had, if I can just reopen it again, so they had the QR thing down the bottom here in against the disc binding, that would be better. And also just because you're not really going to be using this section, so if you didn't want to be tearing your pages out all the time and having your pieces of paper everywhere, if you do want to write and keep the pages in the disc binding, then you wouldn't be hitting it as much, because you're going to be writing more on this line than you are like down the bottom. Anyway, minor con, it's not really a big deal, and because it's disc bound, just take the pages out and then pop them back in, just pointing a few things out. So if I keep flicking to the back, I'll show you the pen test that I did. So I did some pens, highlighters, stamps, all the usual stuff. If you follow me, you'll have seen these before. I try and use the same pens across all the planners and notebooks that I review, so you can see how they compare. So always this Inkjoy ballpoint one tends to fare the best. Doesn't matter like what I'm using. If I can just grab the paper, turn the page. And this time, it's the same thing again. There's not a lot of show through. In fact, I can't even really see that pen at all. Can't see really many of the pens. The marker one, to be expected, has a bit of bleed through. The highlighters and the stamps have a bit of show through as well. So I did the pen test, and then I decided because of this like show through a bit, I wasn't going to use a heavy highlighter spread, which was originally what I was going to do to test out if it affects when you scan it in the app. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. It will still scan it fine regardless of if you have like colourful or just neutral spread. You can use whatever colours you want. I mean, you can still take a photo on your phone anyway if you were having trouble with the app. So then, let me just show you my spread that I did for this week. If I just keep scrolling, here we go. So this is what I mean by how, see this side here, but then I can't look at everything all at once. I have to keep turning it around, and then the other side's upside down. So that got a little bit annoying. So I really liked the wide lines, which, like if you had a portrait ways, you know what I mean, if you're going across the page, your columns are more narrow. Some people might prefer that, but for me, I actually didn't mind the landscape page orientation. So I did a task list, estimated time, and then my priority, and the little asterisk down here were my must-dos. I did my little stroke thing, and I did do screenshots. I'll show you in the blog post, like when I used the app to scan this thing in. And then I put the week and then the year. And it looked a little bit plain, so I wanted to add some color. So I got a ruler and did some underlining with the pen end. So I used these highlighters, which are similar to the mild liner. You know how they have like a sort of pen tip end? And I used that to do the highlighting, which worked all right for a while. But then if you do this, the highlighter, when it touches the lines like here, it started going a bit brown. So I just had to scribble the highlighter on some scrap paper to get like my color back. So keep that in mind. That's probably the case with any notebook when you're like touching the ink. So you can see here my purple actually turned brown because it was touching the black ink. So just keep that in mind. But I do really like how it turned out. A little bit of color looks really nice. And on the other side, I have my blog post plans with my usual workflow categories. And then I wanted to add a little bit of color, but I didn't want to, I was originally going to use highlighter pencils, but I thought that would be too heavy. And then if I do those, I find that I have to write over the top again in black pen, which I didn't want to do. So I just added some little like scallop border things with highlighter around it, and it looked quite nice. One thing that I did find a little bit annoying was down here in the corner. Because the scan code thing is bigger than this title box, you do have this sort of odd two lines here. So I think if they could make that thing smaller, like more the same size of this, and then you could get a full, you know, line of dot grid there, I think that would be really good improvement. So that's it for this review. I hope you found it helpful. I do like the notebook. As for whether I'd use the app, for me personally, I don't really need to. I just take a photo of the notebook with my phone. But if you're like wanting to use it for corporate kind of setting, or you want to send something to a client, you know, not have like your background in the picture, then you could use it then. But otherwise, I think it's a good discbound notebook, and it's the first one that I've found that has a landscape page orientation rather than portrait like this with the lines, but maybe they'll bring out a portrait one in the future. The cost, it's normally $25, but I've seen on their website, I don't know if it's like their new price or not, that it's on sale for $20 and it comes from the US. So keep that in mind. If you're in Australia like I do, shipping will be a little bit more pricey because it's coming from the US. So hope you found this video helpful. I will have that blog post link down below with all the dimensions and everything. Back cover same as the front. Just forgot to point that out earlier. So we'll have all those details linked in the blog post down below. Hope you found this review helpful. Don't forget to subscribe. I usually post a couple of review videos each week.